If history could talk, specifically that of the gold rush days of the Wild West, more than likely it would happen here, under the big skies of southwestern Montana, amid the rustic charms of Bannack State Park.
Bannack is considered one of the best preserved ghost towns, boom towns in the United States. We have about 60 homes left here in Bannack that people are able to roam and visit. It's one of the great things about the park. You can go in and see these layers of life, the layers of wallpaper and linoleum, and the use of a building for 100 years, because these buildings were in continual use, so you get to explore the town site. And if you're here at the really right time, you can really get the experience when the streets aren't so crowded, and you can kind of hear the wind blowing through these buildings and lifting the metal up and making all these creaking sounds.
Like most of the western frontier towns founded by gold in the mid-1800s, Bannack prospered early and then struggled to survive. It's a compelling story of promise, greed, despair, and sorrow. The perfect draw for visitors fascinated by the history of the American West.
Yeah, Bannack is a gold rush community, and it's really the first significant gold rush in what is now Montana. Gold was discovered here on the 28th of July in 1862 by a party of what we would call Pikes Peakers, actually heading to Washington Territory, but en route were hearing discouraging reports, diverted themselves, presumably heading up to Deer Lodge, Montana, prospecting en route. Lo and behold, they find a significant gold strike, and the rush to Bannack would be on. Bannack is probably best known for the 7 executions that would occur here, 6 of them by vigilantes, in a period of time where they hanged 24 men in 6 weeks. But in Bannack proper, the vigilantes hanged the sheriff on January 10th, 1864 with 2 of his deputies. They also shot a man 100 times and still hanged him. And eventually they came back for a one-legged man. Another man wrote in town, simply an honest mistake. It's a great and important story to the history of Montana.
Shortly after the infamous vigilante killings, the U.S. government in May of 1864 established the Territory of Montana, and Bannack was named the capital. Unfortunately, less than a year later, the town's reign as Montana's first territorial capital would come to an abrupt end when, following the trail of gold, it would move to Virginia City.
The gold isn't going to disappear, but the gold rush, the stream placer gold, the easy stuff coming out of the creek, is going to fade away within a year or 2 years, and the prospectors are going to move out and find the next rush site. But Bannack doesn't die. Bannack continues to survive, and we would go through periods of hydraulic mining, dredge boats, including the first electric dredge in North America operating here at Bannack.
From the very beginning, the existence of Bannack and its survival depended on the mining of gold. When that ended with the start of World War II in 1941, the town's fate was sealed, and by the early 1950s, it was virtually deserted and deteriorating from neglect. In 1954, thanks to the preservation efforts of numerous citizen groups, Western Montana College, and the Beaverhead County Museum Association, a third of what is now Bannack State Park was purchased and then promptly donated to the state of Montana, with one stipulation: Bannack was to be preserved as it was left, a ghost town. Today, nearly 60 years later, the state, which now owns the entire 1,600-acre site, continues to follow that directive.
Well, we're a recreation area, and more specifically a historic site. And our mission here is to kind of give people a feel of Bannack's past. So when people leave here, they want to have the feel for an abandoned ghost town. We're unlike Virginia City, because Virginia City is a living town, we're a ghost town. Bannack is over 150 years old, and the buildings take a lot of work. It takes a lot of money to stabilize them. We have an internal staff that does various roofing projects, foundation work, replacing windows. So our main purpose is to keep the buildings up from falling down.
Open from mid-May to mid-October, Bannack State Park offers visitors plenty to see and do. Being a recreational area, there are 2 campgrounds, hiking and horseback trails, and much more. But the focal point is the town, where self-exploration is encouraged.
Absolutely, and just down the street from me sits the church, built in 1877 by a very famous circuit riding minister named Brother William Van Orsdell. And Brother Van happened to be here during the Battle of the Big Hole. And the Battle of the Big Hole, a very famous Native American battle out here between the Nez Perce and the American Army. Back over here would be the jails. We have the first jail built in Montana. The jail was actually built by the sheriff prior to his hanging, and it's kind of funny because if you look out of the window, there's two jails there. If you look out of the window of the small jail, it frames the gallows up into the gulch just perfectly for us. We have the first brick courthouse still standing in Montana, which was converted into a hotel, the Meade Hotel, which is the big impressive brick building here in town. There's the school and Masonic Lodge. The lodge itself is still used here in Bannack, and today it's known as a historic lodge. The Masons were organized all over the West very, very early, and they have been here in Bannack since the 1870s, and now this historic lodge reopened in 2000.
It's been written that Bannack is not a dead ghost town, but a living classroom. A place frozen in time that's been preserved and protected rather than restored and exploited. Simply put, Bannack is authentic. It's rough and it's raw, but then so was the history of the American West.
Bannack is really representative of many Western towns, not just gold mining towns, but this town and the individuals that lived here really struggled to survive. And it's this continual community that I think is the point that people really need to grasp.
Some of the comments that they've told us is that they appreciate us keeping these buildings up. It's the best ghost town that they've ever been to, and they want us to keep the work going and keep Bannack alive.
If you have an idea for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.